Hey guys, this is Daryl,
And Aaron.
this is day 6, where we actually get to go through the Panama Canal.
It's that day.
Yep, that's what it's all about. So let's kind of go through the day, because it was a long day. It was a fun day, but a long day. So first off, what we wanted to do was the gym was going to go through the locks around 7 o'clock, I think is what was scheduled. It was a few minutes after that, but what we wanted to do, you have to kind of get in position to be able to film or take pictures strategically. So there's the bow of the ship, which they do not normally allow passengers to get to. It's crew can get to it. There's a little swimming pool, that kind of thing, but normally people aren't allowed. Well, for this particular transit through the Panama Canal, they're going to let the passengers out there. So, but we know there was a lot of people that was probably going to want to get out there and get into a good position before anybody else. So we got up about 5 o'clock and headed out towards the bow of the ship.
Yep. So we did have to wait in the hallway. The poor people on the deck, they had to wait for security to get there. So we were lined up a little ways. One of the gentlemen opened up his door
What's going
and
on?
greeted us. But once security got there, we all were able to head there, and I think Daryl and I got a pretty good spot.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't matter, right or left side. You're going to get to see pretty much everything. Because this is toward the front of the ship, right?
Yes, but somehow we picked the right side because we went right, and everybody who went left had the sun to do
Yeah,
with.
that's a good point.
We did.
We did good being where we were at. So we had a good strategic point to be able to film everything as we transited through the Panama Canal.
Mm-hmm. So that took a little while, but once we got there, the NCL crew came through. Out there ready for us was water, coffee, and a couple of pastries.
Yeah, some Danishes and that kind of thing. That was really pretty good of them. I guess they knew there was going to be a lot of people who wanted to go out on the bow from experience. So they had that out there. And of course, again, the food and beverage director, he was out there 5 o'clock in the morning, or well, when we got out about 5:30. So again, the leadership there. Pretty cool seeing that from the NCL staff.
Yep. So like Daryl said, we were supposed to go through the locks around 6:45-ish, 7. But the captain came on and let us know that there was a huge ship in front of us. So we were going to be a tad bit delayed. But it was kind of neat watching them go before us. And there was 2 sailboats. So the massive ship entered into the first, what is it called?
First chamber.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting here is you got a big, huge ship, right? And it was a container ship of some sort, and 2 sailboats, as Aaron mentioned. So any vessel that goes through the Panama Canal is required to have a Panama Canal Authority pilot. Period. Any vessel that goes through. And of course, one boarded our ship as well right before we went through. And but for sailboats, what they do is they tie themselves together, and they can have one pilot cover both of those, and they share the cost of that. The other thing about the sailboats is they actually generally they reserve or schedule a time to go through. And so if there's room in between the big boat, they want to always fill that with anything they can as they go through each chamber and up through into Gatun Lake and on through to the Pacific. So like I said, those 2 sailboats were tied together, and they had a pilot on board. We got some really good video from that front perspective. Again, you could see out each chamber. So we were going up from the Atlantic side, going up in the 3 different chambers within that lock. And so we kind of progressed through there. And as we talk about it, you'll actually go down in the rest of the locks that we went through on the ferry.
Yeah, but it was very, so again, the perspective of us being on the bow watching, but watching that big ship, I mean, just, you know, the door shuts behind them and they're massive doors, and watching that ship.
Or gate, yeah.
Or, you know, it just.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Rising, and then, you know, he goes forward, and so you go through three chambers. So that was very interesting watching him doing that first.
Before us going up, right?
And then knowing what we're going to be doing. So, yeah.
Pretty cool going through all that. Now, the ships, not the sailboats, but the big ships, like our Gem as well, they have what's called mules. And there's these they're kind of like a railroad car in a way, but a little bit cooler looking. But they have these mechanisms on two mechanisms on the side of the mule that they connect some cables to the ship. And so their job, and there was actually, for the Gem, there was 3 of them, you know, so there was one that was right by us, right out of our viewpoint. And it basically, the role of the mule is to keep the boat centered. And when we actually went down to level 7 or deck 7 later, you could see that there was, you know, no more than a foot, give or take. It was kind of hard to see exact, but there wasn't much room between the wall and the side of our boat.
You could actually touch the wall from the promenade, the deck 7.
Yeah, and so we highly recommend, if you make this cruise, get up this morning, get out on the front bow. It's a great perspective to see what all's going on. It's well worth it. Like I said, the coffee by the staff there, by NCL, was really cool. So at that point, though, after we went through a couple of the first 2 chambers, we decided we were going to get a different perspective. So we went to the 7th level, 7th deck, and again looked over the side, and you could see that gap. So that was kind of a cool perspective to video and know just how close they are to fitting within the Panama Canal. Now, this is the old Panama Canal locks, right? The old locking system. There's a newer one, but we did not go through those, and that allows for much bigger, wider tankers and things that can't go through the old locks. You can go through these new ones. So we didn't get a chance to go through those. But I will say it was a long, slow process. Just be prepared. Nothing happens very fast. You don't move through very fast. The ship does go under its own propulsion, right? You under its own power. But again, it's a very, very slow process.
I got tickled. One of the ladies next to me said it's like watching wet paint dry.
It was very much like that. But it was cool. Don't
it was
get me
absolutely
wrong.
Cool.
You just got to be patient because nothing happens very fast.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, at that point, we went down the level 7 or deck 7 and got a shot of that perspective. Then we decided to go eat some breakfast and have some more coffee. Yeah. So that was important. So we took off, grabbed some food, and got prepared for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And that was about 9 o'clock, I think, something like that.
All right. So we wanted to make sure we had a good breakfast. So as you know, Garden Cafe can provide that for us. But we also wanted to, in our talk, if you've watched our video from before, we did go to a Panama Canal talk and
put on by NCL staff.
Yeah, and they recommended us grab and goes. So they had the sealed cereals, they had some sandwiches with a variety of fixings in the sandwiches. So after eating breakfast, we grabbed some grab and go and to prepare us for our excursion. Absolutely.
So that was really cool, the NCL staff to provide that grab and go, because that's not something they necessarily normally do. I mean, it was packaged to bring off the ship. Basically, you can always take anything you want, I guess, back to your room or whatever on the boat. But this is different. It was only this morning they set this up. So
yeah.
And later on, we'll tell you why that was important to do. About 9:30 or so, we headed over to the Moderna restaurant, and that's one of the complimentary restaurants, but of course wasn't open at the time. That was our meeting place for the excursion to be called.
Yep. So while we were there, I did run up to deck 7, back up to deck 7, because we were actually entering the lake area, and we were finished going through the locks. So I did want to film that part of it.
About 10 o'clock, once you transited the locks, you entered the Gatun Lake. So we came to a place there and basically anchored, and they lowered down lifeboats. And for those who are going on the excursions, you boarded those lifeboats, and they brought us over to the Gatun Yacht Club.
Good morning.
Now, the people who didn't want to do the excursions, they stayed on boat, our old ship, and then the ship actually returned back through the locks at that point to Colon at the dock there. Okay, so again, we went across to the Gatun Yacht Club. It was real close, and we loaded buses.
And we decided, so some people were totally happy going through the one lock and going back to the city of Cologne. But we figured the reason why we booked this cruise was because we wanted to do the Panama Canal and all 3 of the locks. And we wanted to go all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So that's why we decided to take this excursion.
Yeah, so this excursion will take us basically, again, a ferry through the 2 locks going to the Pacific and to Panama City.
So at this point, we got off the lifeboat at the yacht club, and we headed to our bus, which was bus number 7.
Yeah, so it was about an hour and 15 minutes, give or take, riding on the bus. Nice, comfortable bus, a big bus, big tour bus.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically went through across some highways and this and that, and down a road that was not in really good shape. That was kind of down a rainforest area, which was pretty cool looking, and eventually got to the canal that leads into the west locks going toward the Pacific, and there the ferry boat was.
Yep, it was in the village of Gamboa.
Gamboa. Yep. And so we were actually there. I believe there were 7 buses, right, that were going to this excursion, which was this ferry boat, and we were the last bus to arrive. And in fact, we were at the back of the bus, so Aaron and I were the last passengers to board the ferry, and there were probably at least over 300 people on that ferry boat.
And it is a 2-story. It's not like when they told us it was a ferry boat cruise. I had no idea how big.
It was hard to imagine what it was going to be like.
Yeah, it was actually 3 stories, but the 3rd story was kind of like the roof. But all the passengers were on the first 2 floors. And
there was a small air conditioned area. Pretty much, everywhere. Everybody sat on chairs. Not really comfortable chairs, but nevertheless there were chairs, and in fact we were in 2 different rows. I mean, everything was already filled up. We were the last 2. We sat at the last 2 seats period, and but that's fine. And so we kind of got aboard, and eventually we waited and waited, and I'd say probably close to an hour.
It was almost an hour, probably.
Before we actually backed away. And the problem again is when you talk about if you're going to transit the Panama Canal, you must have a Panama Canal Authority approved pilot to basically give input on or take control of your ship as you go through the canal. And so we were waiting on that guy, the pilot, to arrive.
Right. Now, the ferry was equipped with many things. So it had bathrooms, both for female and male, on board. When we arrived, they provided you with free Coke only, or water.
Coca-Cola and water, and there was plenty of that. They also had some good old cerveza, which kind of helps quench that thirst sometimes when you want it.
That was for sale, yeah.
Yeah, that was for sale. That was not free. They also had a little gift shop. But anyhow, it was a good little setup, I guess. A lot of people. Again, long day. After about an hour, we finally backed away and started heading towards the first lock, which was the Pedro Miguel Locks.
Yep. So you cross what they call the Galliard cut.
That's basically the canal getting to that spot, or to the first lock there. And so there was a car container, a car of ship that transported, several cars, big huge ship. He was already there, and he had actually passed us while we were still at dock before we left in the ferry boat. And so they actually said, don't know if this is the case, but the ferry boat, basically they want to optimize when they do the lock system, right? So they want to get the maximum out of each time there's a transit through. So that boat had to wait, or
about 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, the tour operator said that he volunteered to wait 30 minutes. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but anyhow, so he was there already, and he had a mule hooked up to him at that point already. And so we actually entered first into the first gate, or the first chamber. We had a catamaran and another sailboat that tied, they had to tie together, and then they were tied to us.
So they came on the side of us, so we were pretty wide going through, because it was our ferry boat, then the catamaran, then the sailboat, next to each other.
And then this big old car carrying boat or ship came up behind us, and it was like, wow. He was 20 yards, 30 yards behind us at the most, and big huge ship, so it was kind of interesting.
So in this particular, we going towards on our ship, the Gem, the water rose to meet the level of where we were going. Now it's the reverse. We are going to be lowering. So I think they lowered us a total of 28 feet in the chambers. So we were going down each time. We would be able to see the horizon and things like that. But as they were lowering us, we lost focus of all that.
It was cool, because you'd like see a building that had like Panama Canal Authority, or on the side of the building when you pulled up. Then we started lowering it, you could barely see. It was like your whole perspective changed. So we progressed through those different chambers. And the way the process kind of worked is, again, everybody was tied together. The two sailboats were tied to us, big ship behind us. Once we proceeded into the next, or headed toward the next gate, we actually let the sailboats, they completely untied, went ahead. Did they?
Yeah. Yes, they went ahead of it, but then they had to wait for us at the next.
For the next gate. Then they had to tie up again and all that stuff, and kind of progress through it. They were talking about, the tour operator was talking about the amount of money it costs to actually go through the Panama Canal. And this is the old canal again.
Yeah. So you have to, first of all, you have to schedule a time, a day and a time, and then there's a cost to go through.
Yeah, and he was saying, like, for that catamaran, it could be somewhere around $1,200 to transit through there, and that other sailboat maybe like $800, $600, something like that. So we're talking big dollars, right? But that's nothing like that ship behind us. He may have been anywhere in the hundreds of thousands, 200,000-300,000, something like that, or even more. And it all depends upon your weight your size, all that kind of stuff, and that's in the, like I said, a couple 100,000 or more.
Or more. I mean, I believe they said like the biggest ship was around $1 million. I mean, it can cost up.
On this one, I think on this particular canal it was like 500,000.
Yeah.
The new one is like $1 million or more.
Mm-hmm.
The transit. But here's the key: is if you don't do that, you got to go around the south tip of South America.
Yes. It costs double the time.
It can cost double the time, and then the operating costs, fuel, and so on and so forth. That's all involved, and so they would gladly pay $1 million.
Yes, it's actually a cost cut for them to go this way and pay that amount versus the longer ride around there and more cost.
Yep. Yeah. So by the third chamber, we were sitting down, or I think I was up front using the camera, using my DJI or my Canon camera. I don't remember what I was doing. And all of a sudden we heard a really loud noise on our left, on our port side, and somehow or another, and again I didn't see it happen, but somehow or another that catamaran kind of rammed the side of our boat, or the back end of the boat.
Somebody had said, that was in the back of the boat, said he was coming in a little too fast.
And then once he kind of hit, he never let off on the throttle and hit it even again more. And it actually tore up a little bit of the fiberglass on that pretty little catamaran. And it took another 15, 20, 30 minutes, I don't know, it was a long time. They had to take pictures. The Port Authority was there, the Canal Authority. So somebody came over there and was checking all out. The pilot on the boat, he probably didn't fare too well. In the report, it probably wasn't, it was nobody's fault, I guess, but somebody maybe wasn't paying attention. But that just delayed us a little bit. Nevertheless, that got all worked out, and we tied up again and started heading out.
Yeah, so we headed to the Miraflores Lake, where we got to the Miraflores Locks.
Yeah, and somewhere in that process, we crossed the Continental Divide. We thought that was pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you get to do a full transit through from the Atlantic to the Pacific, if you do this excursion, you also cross the Continental Divide.
Yep.
So pretty cool. And on our way, guess what they gave us? So part of the excursion was they were going to give us a lunch, basically. I ain't going to say free, but they were going to give us a lunch. And they called kind of in groups, 20, 30 people at a time, and I was kind of less than elated with what we had, and it was basically rice,
no beans.
There was mixed vegetables, kind of like the frozen kind, I think. Don't know that, but kind of like the frozen kind of mixed vegetables you can get, and then some chicken fingers. They were discolored. They didn't taste bad, but it's hard to eat. It was hard to eat it based on what we're used to seeing, right? All right, so we mentioned earlier that NCL provided some grab and goes, and they kind of said you could take some of the boxes of cereal, dry cereal, and they had some apples and oranges, I think. And they did say, hey, you can grab some of that before you go on the ferry excursion, because it's going to be a long day. But they provide a lunch. But I wish they would have kind of told us what that lunch was going to be. So the tip is, when NCL offers up some grab and goes, take them, grab them and go. Because like I said, the lunch just wasn't that great. And what do you think about them?
I didn't partake in it myself, but the people sitting around me weren't enthused. So besides the chicken, they did have the choice of a cheese sandwich also.
Yeah, it was a slice of cheese, like you take off the wrapper, put it on a piece of bread, cut it in half, and there's a cheese sandwich, right?
Yeah.
Not melted, not nothing. So.
No. So people were eating it, but it was not their favorite meal. So like Daryl said, go ahead and get you some grab and go sandwiches or some cereals to snack on stuff while you're on the excursion.
Yeah, and I brought a couple of sandwiches and a little box of cereal, and the sandwiches were great. So just a good tip if you're going on a long excursion like this, and the cruise line offers you some grab and go. They know what you're going to have. They just didn't really tell us that you may not enjoy the meal. Otherwise, the entire trip was worth doing. But this is just the one deficiency that we believe they could do a little bit better on their lunch.
While we were on the excursion, we did going through the canal. There was other things to see other than just the locks and the bridges. So the tour operator did a great job of talking up all the points. In
any point. He talked nonstop, just about.
He did. So not only was that, he told us about Panama in general, Panama City, about Colon.
About the politicians.
Yes. So he talked about the money and the money exchange. What kind of dollar they use. So he was very informative. I don't think he missed a thing, and if he did, there wasn't any more room to put it.
Yeah, and like I said, on a trip like this that's kind of slow, things don't move fast like we talked about when the ship was going through the East Locks. It's just not a fast process, right? And if you were just sitting there and not having any commentary, it would have been probably a lot more boring. But nevertheless, so him speaking all the way through and talking about things that kept you attentive, and he covered everything under the moon. So
he did.
He did a good job on that aspect.
I did want to go back. So during the trip, they, like we told you before, free water and free soda, and that was throughout the trip. So the tour guides on the buses were different from the tour guide on the boat, and they all were making sure everybody was comfortable. So they were constantly walking around with iced water or Coke, making sure if you needed anything. So they did a great job of making sure everybody was as comfortable as possible. I mean, it was hot. Most of us were under shade.
Yeah. Except maybe when you went out on the front kind of bow of the boat, so you could film or take pictures. But yeah. And
the first 4 rows on the ferry, they were in the sun majority of the time. So, but other than that, you were in the shade. You were going where there was a slight breeze. They were very cognizant of making sure you stayed hydrated throughout the trip.
Yeah, and they did bring around cervezas as well.
Yeah.
For those who wanted to indulge.
Yeah.
So we finally kind of made it through the Miraflores Locks, and you kind of keep going down the canal. You're out of the lock system per se, but you're going down the canal. And at one point, you could through an angle through some mountains, you could see some sky risers, right? So that was Panama City out there in the kind of to the east of us a little bit, or southeast of us, as we were progressing through there. We passed by. What did we pass by? The big container port.
It was massive. It was on both sides of the canal. There must have been at least 5 ships on each side.
Yeah, on each side
at least.
Yeah.
5, and they were. It was a working, it wasn't shut down at the time. We watched containers being lifted on the elevators, I think what they call them, and putting them on the ship or taking them off other ships. So it was a fun action to see.
Yeah. Yep. So I got to use my zoom in camera and take some good snapshots as well. So it's just real picturesque. Even though it wasn't pretty, it was pretty neat from a mechanical standpoint or industrial standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Big port.
Yep. And so when we passed through the last locks, we did go into the Pacific Ocean.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They consider that the Pacific Ocean. And again, we kept going forward. at one point, there's a point, I guess, let's put it that way. There's a little island out here, Rock Island, and there's ships just lined up all out there, over a dozen ships at least. And so as we kind of come around the point, you get just a beautiful, again, skyline of Panama City. Just beautiful, breathtaking.
It is.
So we, of course, everybody was in awe of that, and we kind of go ahead.
Well, it was nice because you have that, and then it was close to sunset, so you.
Yep.
I mean, it just, like he said, it just took your breath away. It was absolutely beautiful.
Right. So we rounded that curve and started heading kind of towards Panama City, and to the north a little bit, kind of a left turn from the boat as we're going east. Is the city or the Port of Balboa, and that's where we actually docked at that point. And
It was kind of neat. So you pull up right in front of almost like an amusement park.
yeah, I don't know what
Had
that
some little
was.
rides and different things. So they had families out there playing and having fun. So that was kind of neat watching that as we waited our turn to get off the ferry.
Yeah, and again, this was like over 300. My estimate's over 300 people. It was 7 buses full of people. And like I said, there was, offloading took just a few minutes, right? 7 buses that came from NCL Gem. And you're looking at a lot of people from 7 full buses. So it took a little while, or took a few minutes to get off, and then we actually loaded the buses again and headed to Colon, but to a location where the Colon dock was. And the NCL Gem, remember when we got off and they brought us over to the Gutan Yacht Club, after a little bit after delivering everybody, they picked their lifeboats up, then they turned back around and retransited through the eastern locks back into the Atlantic by Colon. So they went and docked at Colon. And as we were driving, it was kind of...
So according to the schedule, if everything went perfect, everybody from the excursions were supposed to be back on the boat by 7:30. So with all that, we were delayed. So it was between 6:45 and 7, as I said, and it was another hour drive back to the port. And let me tell you, we had the best bus driver. I think he went to NASCAR training.
He was moving out pretty good, but being safe.
Yes.
And we came up on one little, it was on the highway, but it was kind of like an exit to go off the highway. Or at least they had, it was like a 4 lanes or something right there. Those 3 lanes over on the right side were, and there's really no warning. There was signs up saying they were closed. And there was a tractor trailer right in front of us in the right lane. And at the very last minute, he realized it and swerved over in our lane. Basically, the bus driver had to lock him up as much as he could to keep from hitting him.
So he was a great driver. When I said he was learned from NASCAR, he had great reflexes. He was able to stop, and we got to the port quickly.
And safely. So you can't beat that. And actually, I think he took a different route back. There was a number of the buses that kept going straight at one point. He went right. And I think we were the first bus back, if not the second back of the 7.
Right. Yeah.
And so they were able to bring us right to the dock, right to where we could on board the boat.
So we did find out as we were getting on the bus from the ferry when our excursion ended, that our boat was actually delayed. A couple of the other excursions that were available, when they got to port, our boat was not there yet. So they got delayed because of the traffic going through the locks. They had to wait for some ships and some boats. So that, like I said, if you go on this excursion, just understand what it says timing wise, when you should be back or do some things going through the locks. Isn't going to be 100%. So.
And it's not 100. It's not 100% in control of the ship of NCL. That's the point. And
right.
The Panama Canal Authority can decide at any point that there's an issue, and they'll slow, not even with your boat, on another boat. And so they have 100% control. Again, they have their pilot on every boat that goes through, or every ship that goes through. And NCL is not in control. Things can happen, and they were a little bit late, but we were a little bit late, so it actually worked out.
It worked out for us.
And we were ready to board almost when they got there and got ready to put the gangway out and all that. We were almost ready to board. So.
Well, and we were the last excursion, so the other excursions, I believe a lot of them were sitting there waiting. I heard one group, they had actually taken to a Lebanese restaurant,
That's right.
waiting for them, but they had all boarded. So if I remember right, we were the absolute excursion boarded. And since we booked, here's the kicker, we booked through NCL on this excursion, so they were not going to leave us. If from understand from other, if we had booked this on our own outside of NCL, they won't necessarily wait for you, or I don't think they would have waited that long. But because we did book through the ship, they were going to wait for us no matter what time we came. Well, they were going to wait for us.
Yeah,
we booked through them.
Yeah, and that's one other thing to look at is, again, we just took it kind of cautiously and booked through NCL for all of our excursions for that reason. And you can, and there are a lot of people, we talked to a number of people who do not book through NCL on the excursions, and they actually, either before the trip, you can go to a couple different places, was it Excursions, or I don't know, or us or something. Well, there's different websites.
There's different excursion groups out there. From understand, there's only one that 100% guarantees getting you back to the boat. Or they'll put you up in a hotel and they'll get you to the next stop. But
they'll fly you to the next stop, so they guarantee it.
Yeah, so there are some riskier ways to go, but on this one particular time, I am very glad we booked through NCL.
Yeah, and talking to a couple different travelers as well, whether you plan your own excursion, you get out and you try to find somebody who will take you on a tour and all that, you really kind of got to look at the city or the port that you're at. Yeah, so there are options for not going through NCL for the excursions, but we chose to go ahead and do that. We may try some things differently next time. This depends, but that opportunity is there, and for sure, if you're on the NCL, they're going to take care of you if you did excursions through them. Yeah, so we got back, what time?
It was
about 8 o'clock,
It was
I think.
about 8. So again, remember, on our schedule, on our paper, it said that everybody should be on board by 7:30. So we were delayed. They were there for us, and we got back safe, but exhausted.
And hungry. Yeah, because remember, the lunch wasn't that great. I did have a sandwich from the grab and go, or two, but that was a full 8 hours, right? So this was 8 o'clock at this point. So long day. We headed over to, guess where? The Garden Cafe.
But all the excursions basically came in. We were the last one, but not only our group, as Daryl said, 300 plus, but the other excursion groups came in at the same time. And so I found that NCL crew did a great job because they knew the Garden Cafe could not fit all of us. So they were letting us know where there was open seating. Get your plate. If you can't find, go to this area. I cannot say enough about this crew on NCL. They have taken care of every situation that we have been to. They're there greeting you at the ship. They're in the ship at different areas. If you have a question, they'll smile at you, tell you good morning. I'm talking about from our cabin steward to the guys greeting you to spray antiseptic on your hands as you're going to the Garden Cafe, to the...
Yeah, he sings. He's funny. Yeah.
And the leadership.
Yeah, and like I said, in all the previous times we've reboarded the ship, either the general manager or the food and beverage manager, kind of his number two, they're out there greeting you as well.
Yes.
So it's pretty impressive the job the NCL staff do.
Absolutely. So we went to got to the Garden Cafe. We did find a table inside the Garden Cafe. We ate, and then we headed back to the room.
And collapsed.
Well, we did take a quick shower. It was a hot day, so.
Yeah.
And when we talked to other passengers that were on our ferry ride, they were saying the same thing: eat, shower, and bed.
Now, one thing just to finish off the episode. One thing we did get from the tour operator was basically kind of a certificate saying that we had transited from the Atlantic to the Pacific via the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool. We'll be able to frame it up and put it on our wall, and that'll be a memory for us. That'll be here for forever.
Yeah. So we highly recommend if you come through and you have never done the Panama Canal, going through the first set of locks with the actual ship, the
It's
Norwegian Gem. I can't say. I mean, that
Very
was
cool.
very cool, and a lot of people were happy with that, and that's fun. But we did want to go from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and we do highly recommend it. Like you said, do the grab and go or bring your own snacks, beef jerky, just anything that you can snack on. But what a memorable excursion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so to finish the episode, we're just going to talk real quick about what we got coming up. So on day 7 is we're going to transit overnight to Puerto Limon, Costa Rica.
Yep.
And we got a excursion planned there already, and we basically go and do a little bit of a tour of the town right there, the main square and all that. Very cool. I'm sure it's very cool.
Yep. So we are heading over to Costa Rica, Puerto Limon.
Puerto Limon.
We have an excursion set for that, so we're looking forward to filming that and bringing that to y'all so you can enjoy it while we do.
Yep. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and as always, we will see you in the next video.